get inside their head. I love it. And then they're thinking on the change of shows, like, is this guy going to ask me out to dinner afterwards? Or like, what's happening? Next thing you know, double fault, gone.
You got to watch the Italians, but they'll take you out on a good date. So.
What would I say if he asked me out? Would I say yes?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tennis Culture. Myself, Rez, but we've got our first guest here today, Rez, a good friend of ours, Jake Okines. Jake, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Good, thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on here. It's I feel like I'm just...
At home?
Well, I feel like I've actually a celebrity, you know?
Oh, there we go. We've treated you we've treated you well.
I walked in here, got an autograph, a couple of pictures in front of the wall.
Fresh coffee?
Fresh coffee. You didn't pay for the coffee, though, so...
That's all right. We look after people who come in here. You are our first guest. And the reason we brought you on, mate, is we wanted to talk today about college tennis. We thought no one better than yourself. You've been in the system for quite a while as a player and also as a coach. Just in 30 seconds, just give us a bit of a rundown, your background in the college scene and what you've been up to for the last couple of years.
Yeah, sure. So I went in 2015, I went to the US. I played Lee University in Tennessee. I was a D2 college and I played 4 years there, and then I ended up actually continuing my studies in my master's and was a grad assistant coach there. So it was a great experience for 6 years there. It's a long time, but flew past, and it was just unbelievable, to be honest.
So, Jake, you were a Div 2 school, and for those who don't know, Jake Okines is a bit of a local legend here in Canberra, a solid player, all-round, awesome guy and great player. What's the stigmata with Division 1, Division 2 and all the other sort of levels? So what's important?
Yeah, so obviously here in Australia, you look at Division 1, Division 2, there's even NAIA and JUCO college, and here everyone wants to play Division 1. And I can understand that. Everyone wants to play Division 1. I wanted to play Division 1 when I went over there. You soon realise that the tennis is pretty much solid across the board. It's... The only difference is maybe type of degree you want to study, whether you want to go, do an engineering. You might not even find a Division 1 school that has that, that fits your needs and stuff like that. And also maybe up to scholarship money in terms of what you can afford, what kind of experience you want, whether you want up north, down south, east or west. But in terms of the tennis, there was no difference between Division 1 and Division 2. Obviously, the top Division 1 schools, you're going to see a lot of talent up there, but in terms of across the board, midway through Division 1 and top Division 2, there's not much difference there in the play at all.
So a lot of people in Australia probably don't understand the college system that well. We don't really have a good college system. If you want to be a tennis player past the high school years, it's kind of up to you. You need to go out and you need to play tournaments yourself. There's no real funding. It's just a one-man show. But I suppose in college, it gives those people an extra 4 years to be able to compete at a high level in a team environment, which probably we don't really understand very much. So question to you, what was it like going from when you were down here in Australia, you were playing, it was very solo, you sort of had to look after yourself a lot, but then you went over to Lee University and next thing you know, you're surrounded by teammates, you're not just playing for yourself, you're playing for your team. What was that kind of transition like?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the transition is... it's a lot different, you walk in your first day and you'll have a team meeting and you're surrounded by, we had 8 guys my first season, 6 of them were brand new guys walking in. So you kind of get that, everyone's kind of looking at each other, oh, do I want to play in the team? I'm going to beat over you, that kind of stuff. But you get over that pretty quickly and that's something that you've got to learn in college tennis is that you're not playing for yourself at all. You're playing one for the university. Then you're playing for the coach because he's given you the opportunity. And then you kind of, you're playing for your teammates. You're out there for your team. If you lose or you win, but the team loses or win on the day, that's what really matters. You could lose, but team fought really hard. You did your job. Team wins, that's great. But you might win and be the only one that wins and the team loses and that's, no one really cares about your win. So that's the type of thing that you really got to get used to straight away. And it's a big wake-up call for a lot of guys trying to get into college tennis, and it's all about before they got there, it was all about themselves, and now it's just team environment. You're playing for your school, your coach, your team, then you're playing for your family because they've given you that opportunity and the sacrifices they've given you to get over there. And then lastly, you're playing for yourself. So, you're way down the list, and that's a big part of college tennis, and that's why it's really good to keep playing.
You've noted you've hit the nail on the head there. Basically, tennis is a very solo sport, isn't it? It's all about your game and your performance, and you spent your whole junior career sort of focusing on that. And you could tell like top players like that kind of concept. So your transition, did you prefer the team atmosphere or did you prefer playing for yourself? Was the pressure quite high? What was the atmosphere kind of like in the college space working for a team?
That's a good question, Rose.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, I did like having the solo. As a junior, you feel like if you stuff up, it's just you, or if you win, it's kind of just you. But then, when you get in a team atmosphere, you don't realize how much you want to win until you get in a team environment. You get in a team environment, it becomes a lot more pressure because you want to support your team, but you want to win for your team. And then
Sort of fires you up a bit more, doesn't it?
oh, for sure. And I understand why, Hewitt, when he plays Davis Cup, he never loses, because he's out there trying to play for his country and for his mates. And that's the same that you play in college tennis. You're playing for your team and you're playing for your mates that are surrounded by you. And, I probably could count on my one hand how many American guys I played over my 4 years. Everyone's international. So, we played.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, my first year, there was only one American, and we probably only averaged about 1 to 2 Americans my whole 4 years there. So, we almost went one season without having one. So, you're playing a lot of international guys, and you understand the different cultures, and it's a real big wake-up call because, if I was a junior that wanted to go play professional tennis after year 12 instead of going over to college, then I wouldn't have understood how to play those different type of countries. They all play different styles, all have different attitudes. So you learn how to play them.
You mentioned you had like 8 players on your team. Is that right? How many players on your team?
Yeah, it ranged. Sometimes 8, sometimes 10. Just depends on the year.
Where did most of them come from? Like, what was the base nationality? Because you said they're not American, which we're quite surprised by that. I'm surprised by that. They're mostly international. Your opponents, your teammates. Where do they all come from? Like, where was the base of their recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, some coaches latch on to different countries, So my coach, he was from Australia, so we started off with 2 Aussies, me and another guy, and we had a couple of Brazilians, one guy from Portugal. In my last couple of years, we had a lot of guys from Spain, and yeah, but they range from everywhere, Great Britain, all the way through to South Africa. You wouldn't know, so they're all everywhere.
It's cool you get those experiences. A lot of people, when they see college too, and they see college athletes, we look at footballers, we look at basketballers. You don't necessarily think of tennis players. I think the college basketballers, footballers, baseballers, they get a lot more glam and a lot more attention. But 2 things I want to ask you about here, because these are 2 things that people might not ask about, but I know they're thinking about. First things first, the swag that you get. So, like, I'm talking about the hoodies, the shoes, I said hoodies already. More hoodies. I really want a hoodie. Give me a hoodie. No, but like all the stuff that comes along with it, and I noticed that you're wearing your Lee tennis hoodie. Now it's Nike. There's a lot of colleges that are sponsored by Nike or Under Armour, these big brands, because a lot of money gets poured into these colleges. Rackets as well. Rackets, like I'm sure there's so much, and you always see it, and they're decked out, absolutely decked out. And if you go on to like Eastbay or Fanatics, which are these American sports apparel sites, there's a whole college section. There's an NFL section, there's an NBA section, and there's a college section, and they have more stuff than anything. It's like the gear is so cool. Teams, yeah. So my question to you is it only like the big Div 1 schools that get that kind of swag, or does it kind of just lower out as you get down the lower end schools, or how does it work? Do you just get free stuff all the time? Or?
Yeah, so obviously the bigger Division 1 schools, they have a lot bigger funding for that type of stuff. So they'll be on a much larger scale instead of, it being just basketball gets this type of clothing and baseball gets this type of clothing. They'll obviously have their playing kits, but the whole school in general will have their own sort of product line, if you will. So like you see it like Tennessee, for example, the Vols, you can buy a Vols t-shirt down here at Rebel. So, they're on a much larger scale. In terms of, for us, we got given gear every year, every second year. We're getting new playing gear, hoodies. we get like 4 pairs of shoes a year. So like, you know,
Yeah, I got hoodies.
Yeah. You like
I'm
your hoodies.
I'm waiting for mine in the mail. Jake said he'd send me one.
Yeah, me too, please.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. No, but that's the type of, in terms of rackets, you know, the biggest schools, they might get rackets. We didn't really get rackets, but we had great deals, you know. Each brand gave us a good deal, and that's all for me, that's all I needed, you know. We get free string. I mean,
Yeah.
got everything I wanted.
Yeah, everything. You kind of get looked after in that sense because you are there to do that kind of job, which kind of leads me into the next question is, I watch a lot of movies. And there's a lot of college movies made, and it always seems to be one dude in the team who can't play for the team because his grades aren't up to scratch. My question to you is, if you're an Australian or an international or even American, if you're looking to go play college sports, how important is the education side of college in terms of, you know, having the link? Do you need to be super smart or a minimum grade average, or are people purely there, hey, you're just there to do sport, let's get you through whatever, you know, degree we need to, let's pass you, and that's not our priority here, you're here to win a sports games. What's the vibe around that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely about the academics as well. I mean, you
Really?
know, you've got to get over to the US, it's year 9 to 12. They're your gun years. I mean, you've got to be on the grades all the time. You know, you're working hard. You got to get good grades. You know, A's and B's is what you're gonna really like. And then, you know, you've got to get towards you're focusing on your SAT. So if you're an international, you got to get a good SAT score. And that's kind of going to get you into the university, and that's going to see where they're at. They can see where you're at in terms of, you know, your academics, how much seriously you take it. But then when you're playing there, I mean, you've got to keep, if you're in the NCAA, you've got to keep a 2.0, which is C average. But, you know, some players obviously struggle if they're just there for their sport, and then sometimes they tank the academics. But, you know, then you're not going to be playing. So it is pretty cutthroat. Some schools might even have a higher average GPA that you have to get to compete because they take their academics really seriously. And that's how they're ultimately funding the athletics. So if the grade point averages are low, then they might not give as much funding to that team in the next year. So it's really important.
Yeah, I've heard stories about this, and you know they focus a lot more now on the student athlete. The glory days, I think, of the movies that we used to watch, Nels. I've heard about this where, you know, the athlete is focused on that. But, you know, when an athlete comes to college, you know, and they've gone through their education and they're with their team and they're doing all that sort of stuff, you know, what do they do after? Like, you've got these internationals in America and, you know, they competed 3 to 4 years at a high level. You were mentioning how strong the competition, how mixed it is. What's next? Like, what's the pathway after that?
Yeah, so there's obviously a couple pathways. Obviously, you know, the pathway I took that stayed there, did my masters, got into the sort of the coaching side of things. But there's a lot of players that I've been a part of playing against and in my conference as well that have gone on to try and make it. And, you know, I feel like they've gone a lot better than what they probably would have if they just went before going to college, you know, straight out of high school, because they get that experience. You learn how to win in a college environment. I mean, everything is completely different to what you would see on a normal tournament basis. And it's just something that, you know, you got to get used to, but you learn how to win. You learn how to beat those guys. You learn how to play different styles. And then that's eventually going to get you to the point where you can play good tennis outside of college.
And you said variety, like the players play different. Like, what do you mean by that? Because you said Spanish players, South American players, British players. How do they play?
Well, the Spanish people, it's pretty easy. They have like chorizo on the change of ends, Mexicans, corn chips, and you should know this. You're a tennis coach, but anyway, we'll let Jake explain.
I'm not a foodie.
No, look, Jake.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Italians, they're a little bit different too, you know.
Spaghetti.
They love their, you know, sparkling water on the side of the court. You know.
Ooh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is pretty cool that you get such a wide variety of people to play against, you know, and you don't necessarily have to go and tour the entire globe for that to happen. It kind of comes to you. Yes, there's travel within your, you know, your college draw. You might have to have a home game and away game, but in terms of that, you know, you really don't have to worry too much about travel. The players come to you and you get that great variety, which you can't really learn in a training environment, you can't really learn how to play these players. It has to be done for you to actually get the results from it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, you get these players that from Spain, for example, typical grinders. You know, like we as Aussies, you know, we're a bit more crash and bash type of style of tennis. We love getting out of the point a bit earlier than usual. Whereas they want to grind all day. Like they'll grind you down until the rubber's gone off your shoes, you know. So you got to learn those different styles and how to play them. Be a bit more patient. You might get someone from Great Britain that, you know, Nelson, you'll love this, serve volley all the time, and you know,
My guys.
yeah, like old school Pat Rafters, you know. But just completely different styles of tennis, and you just got to learn how to do it. They have different attitudes, you know. They might have a go at you, certain aspects of the match, playing mind games. It's just all it's college tennis. You know?
Well, that leads me to my second last question. We'll start wrapping things up here, but before we do, I want to ask you: have you had some like stellar banter moments with other people, other teams, and has your Aussie wit, slang, slur sort of like helped you or hindered you, or like there's got to be some moments where someone's had a go at the Aussie, being you, and there's been a bit of friction. Like, you know, people get fired up in team sports.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you know, I'm never one to sort of get into a bit of a biff in tennis, but you know, if someone starts something and it's a big match and I need to, you know, get a little bit of edge, I'm going to be saying stuff on the change of ends for sure. Just a few little comments here and there.
Was it the Italian?
Sometimes, yeah. The Italians, sometimes they rub me the wrong way. You know, they're bloody good competitors and they try and get in your ear and stuff. So you just got to.
Did you ever try this one? Grabbing his sparkling water and give it a real good shake.
Ooh, I
yeah.
like that.
I reckon that'd mess him up.
And they're kind of like Rafa, you know, where they've got to put the bottle
particular.
in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you just walk past and kick it over, you know, just accidentally, you didn't see it. Sorry,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah. That's
Okay,
kind of stuff
so we're changing ends right now. You need this win against me.
Yep.
Okay, we're on the change of ends. I've been giving you like a hard time. I'm not a nice person.
Right.
Change of ends. Give me something that you'd say on the keep it, you know, relatively PG rated. But
No, you know, I could say something to them personal, but the problem is when you go personal, it fires them up, you know. So you've got to throw them off. So I just walk past and you look at the ground, you don't make eye contact or anything, and you're like, geez, I'm drier than a dead dingo's donga.
Yeah,
and, you know,
nice.
They've got no idea. They're sitting at the change of ends going, I have no idea what he just said. Dingo something. And then first 2 points, they got no chance. You know?
see, I like the one where you compliment them so awkwardly that they start getting uncomfortable. You walk past them, you're like, I love how good your legs are looking today. Like that is incredible. What is your, like, they're so smooth. Do you use moisturizer? Like, what is it?
Shaving the legs is one, you know. I love it when you shave your legs, mate.
Yeah, just get inside their head. I love it. And then they're thinking on the change of shows, like, is this guy going to ask me out to dinner afterwards? Or like, what's happening? Next thing you know, double fault, gone.
You got to watch the Italians, but they'll take you out to a good date. So.
What would I say if he asked me out? Would I say yes?
Mate, there's obviously different ways on how, if I was a player finishing up high school, if I wanted to get into college, there's obviously lots of different ways I can go about it. But I know you started up this little side project, a business of yours, and you're trying to help people make that transition, make it a bit easier. So just while we wrap things up, tell us a little bit about this, why you did it, and how people can get involved.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was helping a lot of athletes along the way throughout my journey, both as a player and particularly as a coach. There was a lot of Australians that were trying to get over, and I was trying to help them get into a college. And now, you know, since I'm finished, I understand what needs to be done in order to get into that college scene. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just helping athletes get into their next level of tennis, their next sort of journey. And the biggest thing is education. You know, you got to find out what we were sort of talking about with stigma, about where you need to be, what do you want from a program, what do you want to study, but also the education of things like academics, you know, because a lot of players will get to year 11 and 12, not have done anything in terms of taking the right courses, and then it really hurts them when they want to try and go to college. I mean, they can't play NCAA if you haven't got 16 core classes, for example. So if you didn't do maths for a year or 2 years, it could hurt you, and you might not even be able to play. So that's the type of thing that I'm working on and trying to help athletes get into that type of environment. And you know, it's extremely personal experience that I give to the players. I help them all the way through, and then once they get there, it doesn't stop from me. I'm there helping them. If they need to look at another school, I'm there for that as well. So I help them all through the academic side, but all the way through to making the video, connecting with coaches, connecting them, helping them with visas, and then finally getting over to compete.
Yeah, and I'm sure in that situation you've got a lot of parents who are letting go of their kids. 18 for the first time. The parents would have a lot of questions too. So it's good to have somebody like yourself who's been there, done that, who can answer all those questions. So how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, my business is called Ready College Recruiting, so they can go on readycollegerecruiting.com, or you can send me an email. We got on Instagram as well, Ready College Recruiting. Email is jake@readycollegerecruiting.com, and that's the best way to get started. And it's a free consultation. So you want to go, free consultation. So set everything up, learn what they have, what they want, whether they can get in terms of eligibility. And then we just go from there.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, we love what you're doing. We love the fact you've been down here in Australia for the last couple of months, helping us out coaching too. And Rez, any parting words to Jake? He leaves this week, so don't get too emotional.
Well, I am a little emotional, but Jake, thanks for everything, man. He's an all-round nice guy, one person who will really help you out through the end of your journey. So please get in contact with him.
Excellent. Parting words, Jakey? Anything to say, mate?
Nah, thanks, boys. You boys are legends. So.
No worries, buddy. Well, I did promise that you could sign out this week. Would you like to try it?
I didn't practice my line.
Okay, I'll do it. Yeah, go for it. All right, guys. Thank you so much for another episode of Tennis Culture. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Press that little subscribe button below. But until then, it is Nelson, Rez, and Jake from Tennis Culture signing
Out.
Nailed it.